right? So we showed you how to set up the Firebase. Remember, we need to add this dependency called the Firebase core and authentication. And also remember, you need to do different things for Android and iOS. What we did for Android is in this folder here, we actually changed some of the Gradle files, if you remember. All of those just follow the tutorials and instructions online, how to set up Firebase for the Flutter project. And then you're good to go. I haven't showed you how to do the iOS. It needs a slightly different process. And then you can add this dependency. You always need the core part, but you also need authentication or other services because Firebase has a lot of services, okay? So here's the Firebase project. Last time we were mainly talking about authentication. So that's why you need to enable that dependency. Today, we're gonna use database, so you will need a different dependency, all right? And then back to the code, it's really, really easy to use. Remember, last time I built this little app to do the authentication. You can sign up, you can log in. And basically we wrote two methods for the two buttons, all right? For the login button, that's all you need. You create this authentication object, and then you call this method called sign in with email and password. All you need to do is pass the email and password. And then a very important thing you need to do is this two different blocks. One is called then, which means if the request was handled successfully, what would you do? And I'm going to show the message, and also I will turn to the next page. Otherwise, I will show the error message. The sign up is exactly the same structure. The only difference, you call different methods using the Flutter Firebase authentication library. It's something called a create user with email and password. Okay, so again, you pass the email and password, and then that's all you need. Very easy to use when you have the Firebase SDK here, because it takes care of everything for you. I mentioned they know how to save the user password with hash. It's not exposed, it's super secure. You don't need to worry about the service got hacked, and because Firebase or Google is helping and protecting that. All right. So today we're going to move on and to look at another important service called the database. All right. So if you click on the database, there actually are two different database solutions you can use. Right. So one is called the Firestore. Okay. So this is kind of a new version of the database provided. It's still a new NoSQL database. We'll talk more about what NoSQL is. And it's newer, but I still recommend the kind of old-fashioned way of creating database, which is called a real-time database. Because from the name, you can see it has this really cool feature called real-time. Okay, so we'll talk about why we need that one. What's the big deal of real-time? But I think you can also use this Firestore. I don't think there's a big difference between the two. The Firestore is more kind of managed on the documents, but it works exactly in the same way. So I would just demo the real-time database because it gave you the real-time feature, which the other one don't have. This is the very cool feature they provide. In fact, in the very early days, the Firebase becomes so popular just because of this real-time database. That's all they had in the very beginning. And all the other features you see here were added later on, especially after they were acquired by Google. So the real-time database is the biggest selling point for Firebase. Okay, so which you should definitely take advantage of. All right, so let's see how to set up this one. First of all, you have to create a database. Okay, when you create a database, it will ask you want to start with a lock mode or test mode. Okay, so this is basically about permission. And do you want everyone to be able to read and write easily? And that's what they mean by test mode. Or if you want to use this in a production mode where you have to configure all the keys and everything. So for your development, for your test purpose, let's just use the test mode because it simplifies everything, okay? So then you will enable it, and then you get into this database. So that's what the database looks like, all right? And you can see there is a URL here for endpoint of your database, which shows if I want to access this database, where should I go? And this one is hosted in Firebase, and it's actually in Google server. So you don't need to worry about the hosting. They're already hosting that for you, okay? And then, so right now it says that the security rules are defined as the public, which means everyone can go ahead and read and write if they know the address, okay? Which is fine because you're just using that for testing purposes. All right. Now, the database is a part of the Firebase, the whole service group. So when you already set up the Firebase project settings, everything, you already have the access to this database. So you don't need to do anything extra for the database for your Flutter project. Before we move on to the Flutter code, you need to understand how this database works, okay? Now, this is the typical NoSQL database, all right? How many of you have took the database class? Yeah, that is actually a very practical topic to learn, but most likely you were learning start from the relational database, knowing how to build the tables, how to define the different columns, structure the database schema, a different kind of a standard you can have for those. Some of the traditional relational database people still use today, such as MySQL, that's the open source database. Or if you use the commercial ones, you have Microsoft SQL Server, that's very popular. Oracle, that's the biggest company that built a database. And those are the traditional relational databases. But then in the recent years, in the past, I would say past 7 years, most of the company or project have switched to use NoSQL database. So we'll talk more about the difference between the two. Some of the name like MongoDB, which you've probably heard about that very often. It's a NoSQL database. There are some of the newer ones, like Cassandra. There are some of the Facebook has different things. They have Reddit, right? Not Reddit, Redis DB. What's the name? I forgot. There's another one called GraphQL, GraphQL, right? Something QL. Sorry. There are more and more of this kind of things going on. Firebase is also a NoSQL database, right? So whenever you see the NoSQL database, basically all it means is it works as a hash table. It's a huge hash table. And if it's a hash table, it means that they have keys and values as pairs. That's how you store data. So let me show you how the database works. So what you see here is basically the root of your database. So when you store any kind of data, you have to provide the name and the value, which means the keys and the value. So it works exactly like a hash table. So for example, I want to store a name, and then here's your value, and that's it. So when you click on add, all right, and then you can put your data here. And I want to store more information. I want to store my major, okay, and then your value. So always provide a key and value together. Okay, so that's basically what NoSQL database is. And you can obviously store any kind of data. You can store, your integers. Okay, add this one here. It works as usual. It supports all the basic typical data types. Now you can also put more complicated data structures here. Okay, so I don't want to store one single data. I want to store, for example, a list of data. Okay, so what you can do is this. You can go ahead to add. All right, let's say I want to store all my students. So I create a students. All right, now student is not one student. Actually, it's multiple students. So this value here, you have to provide a whole list. And then in order to do that, from the portal here, you can click on the add. As you can see, it automatically create a new level that allows you to store more data. And then you can have many students. Now, every student, I have to separate them. Okay, so the way to do it, again, I can use some kind of a key, such as student ID, Bronco ID, to separate them. So I have student 001, for example. Okay, that's one key. And then from here, every student also want to provide a name, major, student ID, all of those information. And then I can just add this one more time. So I can start to type some name. All right. And then I can add major. All right. So that's one student. And then let me first add it first so they can see the structure. So that's what it looks like. Okay, you got a students, and then included in the student, you have different students. Every student has a unique ID, and then you can find the attributes. So from here, you can add more. I can have my second student here, and also use the same attribute name, all right, and then major, and then add it. All right, so all of those stored as a list, which is included under the students. All right, but again, it's always key value pairs. Okay, so if you look at the students is the key, and then everything here under the students are the whole value. Okay, but the value, you can parse the value as a list. Okay, every list has item. Now this item here called 0 to 1, the key is 0 1, and the value is the whole part here. Or you can also say that for every single attribute, I can see the key here, the major, and then the value is CS. So depending on the kind of a key I gave you, you are able to locate the different parts of the database. So for example, if I say, okay, you really need to know this concept, okay? So if I say, okay, if I say that students, right, that's the key. Now what's going to return as a value is the whole thing. Okay, it includes 0, 1, and then all the things like name, major, all of this stuff, and also you got 0, 2, and then name and major, including the actual value. Right. Now, but if I ask you, okay, I want to use this key called student/001, I just want to access that particular one student, then what's going to return is only going to be this. Okay, so whatever is stored under this 001, students 001, and then you will get this part. Or if I'm asking 001 dash major, and all you're going to get is CS. It just works like a pass, like a file system. I give you the pass, and you're going to identify the path from here to here, and then next level here, and then it will return you whatever you store here at the value. So that's how the key value works. Okay, it's just one hash table, but it's more flexible. You can give different paths to locate the specific position in that big table. All right, so that's how it works. All right, so once you understand that, let's actually see how do we put the data from Flutter. Because as you place data, you always put the key value pairs. That's it. All right, so let's show some examples. All right, so you can always let's just delete everything here. I'm going to keep the student. Probably I'll use that as an example, but I'm going to delete this part here. All right. So let's just use this structure. I'm going to store some student information. Every student has an ID and also name, major, or maybe some other information. All right. So, but I'm going to do that through my app. All right. So from here, I can just log in. Let me make sure the login still works. All right. So that. Yeah, the Wi-Fi stopped working here again. All right, so I probably have to do this one more time. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, close this one. All right, let me try to, there's a cold start. While we're waiting, I'm gonna build this home page here. All right, so right now it doesn't really do anything except just showing welcome the user. So I'm gonna get some button for me to add a new student, for example. So I'll use this button here, add student, and then I'll press. All right, so that I can put in student information. And then I can also put some of the input boxes. They just get it from here. So I don't need this one here. Oh, sorry, false. I need a name. And also I need a controller. Let me add that one here. Name added controller. And also I got 8. All right. Also major. So I'm gonna put 3 things here. So this one is name. All right, so let me get 2 more. So this one is for age. Lastly, this one for major. All right. So let's try to run it. Just clean up all the comments here so it looks simple. All right, so while we're reading, also you need to start to look into the Firebase database dependency for the Flutter, okay? So you will find things here. So let me go back and tell you where to find it. So everything is from here. If you always go to Flutter, Firebase. All right, and then go to the very top official link here, okay? So that shows you how to set up, which we did before. So this is the official documentation, okay? All the requirements, and then follow the steps to create a project, and then set up Android, set up iOS by getting all these configuration files. Once everything is done, at the end, you want to look into this add the Firebase plugins. So the plugins, the dependencies, okay? So we already showed you how to add the core. That's what you already have. Last time we did authentication. And you can see if you want to use this Firestore database, you want to add this one. But we're using a real-time database. I think that's much cooler than this database here, okay? And then you want to find out that dependency. To find dependency, there had to be some links. Okay, this one here, Flutter Fire plugins. All right, so this is basically a collection of all the Flutter Firebase dependency you can have. As listed here, you can have the Firestore functions, analytics, authentication core, all of those. The one we are needing is database. So click on this one. That leads you to this official dependency package page. All right, so I'm gonna put this one here. All right, so looks like the app is here. Okay, so I'm gonna log in. All right, so that works. As you can see, I just added another 3 boxes here for name, for age and major, and then you can add the student. This is a current user unique ID, if you remember, and we use the API to get the current login user. All right, so that's how it works. All right, so let me just make sure when I press the button, I can print out the information you type here. I can print out the name. And also the age and major. All right, so let me refresh. So I'm gonna put some name here. Okay, once I click on the button, and it prints out 3 values I inputted here. So everything works. That's the basic UI part, okay? So the editing part, that's how you handle it using a exploit controller. Sometimes you don't need to provide a controller, you can just provide variable depending on the actual UI widget you use, okay? So this part should be something you already know. And then I'm gonna work on more on here. So right now I can grab all the data, but I need to send them to the actual Firebase. So I need to add a dependency. So let's finish that. So we needed to have this dependency. So if you don't know how to add it, so normally there is a tab called installing. You will see this kind of a pub dev repository very often. So the installing normally tells you the code you need to add dependency. So go here, just copy this line here, okay? And then go back to your Android Studio. So what you need to do is put it down here as another dependency. Remember this part here, I think the indentation has meanings. Okay, I haven't looked into what's the meaning, but make sure you put them, align them perfectly, just one after another. I guess it's something like this is contained under this. Okay, so you don't want to create this extra indentation. Make sure they're all aligned. Once you have this, it's going to show up the package get to let you to download the actual package. Always click on that right away. Otherwise, it won't work. All right, so this is when Flutter, the Android Studio, go to the repository to get the dependency, and then you can start to code that in your actual Dart code. Of course, you need to import the package first. So that's why this document always tell you what kind of package you want to import. So use this line here, and I'm going to import it here. And just make sure to click on this get dependency, make sure everything is get it clear and done. All right. So I would always rerun this code here one more time, just to make sure that nothing is wrong. Because sometimes when you add a dependency, it will cause some errors, especially with Firebase. The good thing is right now it looks like the latest project actually does fix a lot of old issues. But if you see some errors, don't be surprised. Just Google and find out a solution. Okay. I'm gonna log in back. All right, so it still works. Now I'm gonna work on adding this piece of data to Firebase. All right, very easy. So I already imported this dependency called Firebase Database. All right, so next thing you need to do is to see here, now how can I send it over? All right, so start with examples from documentation. So again, there are examples here, okay, a lot of code. Sometimes the README part also has a lot of code. In this case, not, all right? So you basically just need to look into either this page or that page, or sometimes you have to go to some kind of a GitHub repository page to find all the examples, okay? Looks at here, it does give you a lot of good example. And you can see the best example, the best documentation is actually code, all right? You don't want to go ahead and read a bunch of documentation and still don't know which method to call. All you need to do is look at this example here with the code and see how you can code something unique. All right, so that's normally the best way to look into this. Now, of course, I already been familiar with this code here, and then you probably need more time. But all I can tell you is if you go here, basically there is a read and write. That's the most important thing you need to do with the database. In this case, let's look at the write first. How do you send the data to Firebase Database? So let's go through the code, and then you will start to see something like, let me see, where to increment. That's the increment. There should be something about sending the data over. It's about watching the changes. Okay. This part is mostly about the read. Okay, so let's see how do we write the data. All right, looks like this is the same piece of code. Okay, here it is. Here is how do you actually write the data. Okay, so anyway, the code is too much. Let me just simplify this. Let me not overwhelm you. Okay, so the way to write the data is really easy. Okay, so all you need to do is go here, go to the top. Just like the authentication, you also need some kind of object that talks directly to the Firebase database. So I'm going to define it. Okay, I think it's called a database reference. This one here, pretty straightforward name. I'm going to call this as a reference, and then you're going to get an instance from Firebase database dot instance and dot reference. That's it. All right. So for this class, you just need this one reference object. So this object has the connection, knows where your database is. The reason they can know it is because you already configured the project like here. Let me show you one more time. Remember, you add this Google service.json. Okay. From this, they can find where your database is. All right, so that's why you don't have to configure anything else. So it's really convenient. All right, so let's get this reference first. Okay. Now, after this, you can use this reference object to save. Okay, it's really easy to use, guys. So look at my screen here. Okay, whenever you try to write the data, all I need to figure out is what is my key and what's the value I want to write. The value in this case is pretty straightforward. That's the information you want to save here, name, age, and major. And then you have to think about what the key is. All right, so let's try that. So reference dot child. As you can see, the child, the name and the parameter is called a path. So they're asking you where you want to save that data. So in this case, go back. I'm going to save that under the students. And also, I want to save it under some kind of ID here. Let me do an experiment. So I'm going to do students/003. That's a new student. All right, so that's how you specify the key. Once you have that, you will do .set. That's where you send the value, okay? Now remember, the set is another like a asynchronized call because you're going to talk to the database, it's going to take some time, and you have to wait. So you will need to use that then catch error block, okay? But before that, you have to send, tell me what you want to send. So because everything is hash table based. In Flutter, you have this thing called a map, hash map. All right, so all you need to do is to just send out that map. So I'm telling you all the hard-coded way, which I think is easier than building actual class. Let's not go through the whole classing. You can just send whatever you need here in this block here as hash table. So for example, I want to send a name, and then here's my name. I want to send the age, and then here's the age. I also want to send the major, and here's the major. All right. So don't be confused here. Okay, this part here, I'm just defining a map. Okay, I'm writing this one, and then just like Python, you can also write this way, like dictionary. That's very convenient. Okay, you don't have to define another class and do all this put method, add method to add everything. You can just directly write this one. It's going to form a map object for you, and this one will be sent over under this key. And then when Firebase get this one, it will automatically parse it and then turn that into the actual structured data that can be used in their Firebase database. So let me show you, okay? But this is not done, okay? Once you set the data, remember, this is asynchronized, okay? When you see the then, you know that you need to do something with the catch and error and all these blocks. So when this one is successful, okay, you're gonna do something. Otherwise, when it's wrong, you're also gonna do something. All right, I think this one here may be kind of a return value you need to capture, okay? Let's see that. So, student is added. And if you're curious about what that is, let's just print it off. Can't do the toString. Okay, so I'm just gonna print it. Oh, wait. Oh, it's a void, so there's nothing you can print it. Okay, let me just print it. All right, here is failed to add the student. And then here's error message. All right, so that's it, okay? Again, guys, let me identify this block of code. That's how you can write the data to Firebase database. Using the reference object, which always looks the same, use the child to provide a path of the database or the key of the place you want to save. Use set to pass the actual value you want to send. It could be one single value. It could be a structured data like this, or it could be a list. Whatever you want to send, just send it over. All this basic data type and structures will be handled by Firebase automatically. And then you do this then block and the catch block, error block to handle different results. Okay, so let's try that. I'm going to refresh the data. All right, so go back here, type the name, major. So I'm going to click on Add Student button. All right, looks like nothing happens. Let's double check here. Or maybe I didn't click on it. Did I refresh? All right, just to be safe, okay, I'm going to rerun the code. add student. All right, is there any errors? No, I don't think so. Let me see. Oh, but then this time, even those are not triggered. So is anything wrong here? On press. All right, that's another very weird error. And now we do get this one here. I think. It's, yeah, I feel the code is not really synchronized for some reason. So because nothing got changed here. Let me restart it. Okay. Pretty weird. All right, I think somehow the emulator stopped connecting with the actual the code. Okay, so let's try this again. It said failed to add student. Let's see what the error. No implementation found for method set on channel plugins. Maybe we didn't update the packages. Anyway, let's try that again. All right, insufficient storage. Let me delete some of the apps. Okay, looks like it's started up. Let me try it again. All right, so this is really slow right now. Okay. All right, click on add student. All right, so it looks like this time it works. Okay, so now the student is added. All right, so getting the data and students added looks like it's successful. Now, when you are working with the Firebase, always go back to the Firebase to verify, okay? Because the Firebase gives you this really nice interface for you to see it, everything here. Okay, as you can see, 03 is added. Now with the new information I'm putting here, 2021 CS Tom, okay? Everything is handled automatically. Now the reason I put here is because the key I use is students 03. So let me make some changes. For example, if I do students, not students, when I refresh my code, I go back, I add it again. All right, when this time is added, go back. As you can see, there's a student 03, same information. This is students 03 information. All right, because your key got changed. So it will go to a different path. Or if you want to do students 04, refresh, add it again. So it goes back to here, and then create this one 004 for them. So the location, it totally depends on the key you provided. But then if you use the same key, like in this case, if I click the add again, add another one, add another one, add another one, I added 3 times. You go back here, nothing got to change. Because you always use the same key, student/004, and every time it's going to replace this part, update this part. Okay, so that's something, another thing you need to keep in mind. If you want to update, replace the existing, then you use the same key. But if you want to add a new data in the record, you have to provide a different key. So that's how the Firebase works. Or most of the NoSQL database, how that works. All right. So of course, if I put a different value, so for example, I update the age. I add a student, and you can see this one here got updated. Or I change the major, I add it, and this one here got updated. All right. So very easy and convenient to use. As you can see, this is basically the line of code you need to write the data. And then this is talking to the real database. You know, think about in the old days, if you want to do this, well, you first have to build a backend server. And then you use all these HTTP libraries and go there to call and structure the data. And now with the modern language framework like Flutter plus Firebase, basically this is one line of code, even though this is the long line of code. But the structure is very clear. You don't need to worry about the data parsing and you know, serialization. You don't need to handle the networking. You only focus on the data itself, the structure, location, and everything. So it's actually a very advanced way of handling application. That's why today, you know, when we talk about building a mobile app, as your sales manager right now, you should know that's something pretty easy to do. Even though for the non-sales manager, they think that's something pretty big, okay? Because of all these tools. All right. But we don't want to use just the hard-coded key here. So there are different ways to handle it. Then the most straightforward way is you can just generate an ID. Of course, generate a unique ID every time. Okay, so there are different ways to generate ID. You can use some kind of a random function or UUID generation. Or an easier way to do, I normally do is just use, for example, timestamp. Okay, so let's see how Dart handle the timestamp. This one here. All right, just do a template, timestamp, and use that as a part of the key for student, so that every time it's unique. Okay, let's try that. I'm gonna add a student, add another one, add another one, add another one. I added 4 students. So go back to my database. All right, so, oh wait, why it's always the same one? Because let's make it. Oh, okay, I didn't copy it. Sorry. All right, so one more time. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's what the database will look like. Okay, every time it's going to pick the timestamp, and because each time it's going to be unique, so they got unique keys, so the student will be saved separately. All right, so I can then change the name every time, and then this one got a new name here. All right, so very easy to use. All right, let's actually start over. I'm going to clean up the data so that you can see the whole process. Okay, I'm going to delete everything. All right, and you put it here. Okay, I got a first student, add it, and it's going to based on the key and then create this data. And I got a second student. Add it, and then you got a second student. And then you got the third one. All right, and the third student. So it's well structured. It's very easy to operate. And also it works really well with all the object-oriented programming languages. So especially when you use the maps to list all this data. Okay, so that's how you write the data to the database. Any questions? Is that something? Yes. No. So think this is your backend. Right? Okay. So you depending on what you want to do. So if you are the app developer and owner, you are hosting everything. You're not going to ask every customer to create a Firebase database and save things in their account. That first of all, that's not going to work because every time you have to set up all this project settings, IDs, endpoints, you can't have every user to do all of this. This is for development. So you basically you host one database, but you split the users using some kind of keys. So for example, one way to do it, for example, let's say in this case, managing students, maybe every teacher or maybe every school can manage their own students. But I can put everyone's data together in the same database, but I can split them. For example, I can use my login, right? So let's do that. Because I know my login here, remember? This user, current user. Current user has unique ID. That's what you see here, this long name here. This is unique. So I can add it to my key here. So I can say current user dot UID slash, or maybe that's just already the UID. All right, I do this one. Now let's see what happens. So I'm going to refresh, go back. I'm going to add a student. Now, this time it goes to the user ID and then students here, right? Add one more. Okay, another one. All right, so let me try to log in with a different user. I think I had another one. Test gmail.com. User gmail.com. Anyway, let me sign up. All right. Okay, so this is a different user. Okay, and then I'm going to start the same process. I'm going to add student. So go to different user. Okay, user, students, and then another students. So basically, you need to define some kind of a schema structure to split our data, but you're never going to have different database for different users. You could do that depending on situation, but for mobile apps, I don't think you would do that. Okay, you manage everything. Yeah, well, maybe you need to do that. But then this is your backend. Whatever you do, you have to have a backend to save all this data. It's not just for Firebase. It's for all the services. Okay, so if you're asking the privacy best practice or legal issues, there had to be something that you probably would do. But technically, you would need to do this kind of thing anyway. Okay, it's pretty typical. All the backend things you need to handle everyone's data. Okay, that's very good. You put that into thought. For development, I wouldn't prioritize that. Okay, you only worry about that when you got 100,000 of data people users. In development, let's put the security, privacy aside. Okay, that's because as a startup, as a project, your goal right now is to make sure to provide the best user experience, make sure people can use that. Otherwise, all this privacy, security is not needed. But those part actually will take you a lot of resources. You want to make sure your server is super secure. You want to make sure your data has the highest level of privacy protection. All of those. I think you need to put a lot of research to do that. But in the beginning, focus on the problem solving it. That's always my advice. And one day you start to see, oh, I got thousands of users, and they all start to put their date of birth, name, address there. Then you will start to feel nervous, and then it's not too late to look into those. But even you need to handle that issue. Again, if you use the Firebase, normally you have pretty decent protection. It's always better than building your own backend servers. Because if they want to hack your server, it's so much easier than hacking Google server. So that's why people prefer to use all the cloud services. Okay, but saving this all in the one account, that's the practice. You can't really have themselves to build their own database. You don't do that. Okay. All right, so that's how you write. Okay, read the data. So let's show you. So I'm gonna go back. I'll add one more button. Okay, this is add student, and here is the button. And list students. Okay. So when you try to load the data, again, all you need to provide is the key. In other words, the path. Okay, where you want to get. Do you want to get everything under this user, or you want to get everything under the students, or you want to get something specific for one student? So that all depends on what you provide here in this path. Okay, so the structure is very similar. Reference, child, because you have to specify the path. So I'm going to use this structure here with the current user. Okay, so with that one student, I want to get all the students under that user. All right, so that's it. You get the path. Now, in this case, you're not writing, so you don't have to provide the data. So you call another method called once. Basically, you're going to get this data once. And then that's going to return you everything. Now, obviously, this is going to be another asynchronized process because you have to wait on the result. So we do then. And obviously, they're going to give you the result at the return. Okay, it's something called the data snapshot. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about that later. Same time, you have a catch error. So this part always the same. Make sure you print something. Otherwise, when something happens, you don't even know something is wrong. All right. Now, what we really need to do is here to see what we got from the read. So I'm going to print this object first. Okay. So refresh my page. Go back here. All right, so I'm going to list my students. Click on this. All right, so it looks like this is successful. It gave me an instance of this data snapshot. Okay, so data snapshot class is class provided by Firebase. Okay, so you need to know how to operate on this data. I'm just going to show you the example directly. You can also find different tutorials that give you the same thing. Okay, so the data snapshot is everything returned under that path. In this case, it's actually everything here, or maybe here, depending on which user, which thing we're talking about this one. Okay. Let me just add more data here, add more students. So I got a total of 3 students right now. Right. So right now it gave me everything, but you only see an object. When I try to list all the students, it's just an object. So what's stored here? So very easy. It gave you a key, and also it gave you a value. So that's what's being stored here as this return result. So let's see what's the key and value here. Okay, so I'm going to put refresh. Now this time, let's look at this again. I'm going to list again. All right, so this is this print statement, just the whole object. This is the key. Now the key is something called students. So it just use the last part of the path you provided. That's the key. Now the most important part is the value. So the value is everything. And you can see this part, guys. So they have this ID and then the whole student object. ID, student object, another ID, student object. So there's 3 records, which corresponds to this 3 records right here. So that's how you can load data from Firebase. Okay, so it's under this value here. Okay, so what is the value? If you look at this structure, this value is basically a map with 3 records. Every record has a key and another map, a key, another map. So again, everything depends on what you provide here. So for example, I want to get a particular student. I want to get just this student here. If I know the ID, I put it here. Okay, I'm going to refresh, go back, this student. That's only going to give me that one student's information because my key determines the path. Okay, so you only have one student information. You don't have all the extra. Or I just want to know the major. So I do another slash major. Refresh. And I list. Okay, it only show the CS because that's what they're looking for. And then the Firebase will return you based on that key you provided. Okay, so I think the key is not the best name. You should always remember that as a pass. So it's just like your file system. Depending on the level you gave, it's going to give you different things under that level. All right, so that's how you can operate the data return. Again, super simple. One line of code returns everything. Now, one tricky part you need to know, which I need to give you an example, is this. Most of the time, you're going to load everything just like student. You want to get all the students. So let me go back. And I list students. All right, so there are list 3 students. But remember, this is not a list. Okay, if there is a list, you will see something like here, like this. But this is not a list. This is the map. But when we are using it, most likely you have to use that as a list because that's a very convenient way for the list view. All right. So you need to turn all this map into a list. All right. So that's how you can do it. So I just need to show you the code, which you will need very often. Basically, what you need to do is to iterate every single element in this map. Remember, this is the map, okay, because of this. You see the brackets. So what you do is ds.value.forEach. Okay, you got this function to iterate everything. That's how you can do it in Dart. You can just Google it. That's how I found it. Okay, so for each, then you provide a little function that something like this. And then the function each time as you iterate it, because this is the map that has another key and value. So there's a key and value here. Okay, so you can iterate that. Okay, let me show you. So I'm going to print key. I'm going to print value. Refresh and list. All right, so it's going. Let me clear up. Okay, so I'm going to disable all of this. Run this again, and so it iterates every record in that map. Every map has a key, value, key, and value. So that's how you can split them one by one when you have multiple records in the return. Okay. And then if you want to know what the name is, what the major is, you can always from here, for example, do something like a name. Okay. List. And that just shows you the name. All right. So again, just directly operate on the data if you know the structure. Of course, a better practice maybe is to build a class in Dart and then map everything back to the class. You got an object, you got a getter and setters. But in my opinion, if this one works, you don't want to bother all the classes and then do all the parsing logic. It's not really required. So, for example, I want to save the list of students in my object here. So I'm going to define student list, which is now empty. Now I want to add everything to this list. So all I need to do is this, dot add. I just want to add the whole value here, everything. Okay. So after that, let me verify that. When I print student list, run it. This time, as you can see, it gave me a perfect list of students. This is the list, and then there are 3 records, and every record is structured with key value pairs. So let's compare this one with that one, so you can see the difference. So this is the data you got from Firebase. It's a map, and the map has the key and value. Now this is the data you organize afterwards. You basically get all the records and then put that into the list. But obviously each time it actually append everything. So what you need to do is you need to clear the data, sorry, the list each time. So you got a brand new copy. So I'm gonna run this, okay. Map and then list. All right, so that's how you can do it. Now, once you have a list, you can do a lot of things, right? You can then have a list view, something like that. So let me just build a list view very quick, okay? Hopefully we don't have any issues. I'm always nervous when I do the list view. To do expand list view dot builder, okay? And all right, I think there's a count, item count, which I'm gonna use student list dot length, and then item builder. I can't remember that. Okay, so further list view. Let's do that very quick, okay? So go to list view, go to find that example. I think, yes, so this one here. All right, let me delete some of those, just a text. Now here is going to be my student list. So student list index, I'm gonna get the actual name. All right. So hopefully that doesn't give us errors. All right, so yeah, there is already a thing here. It's actually list everything. So let me show you this. So I'm gonna add another student. I'm gonna add another one. All right, so there are 5 students. Then when I refresh, it doesn't refresh because we didn't set the state, right? So right here. So I think let's do this one. I think that's not the most efficient way to set it. Hopefully that works. Refresh. Yeah, you can see you got a 5 data here shows up. Okay, this is probably not the most optimized because I guess this way every time we add it, it's going to trigger a chain. So we can probably do something like this. I can do put this one later, but create another empty list, temporary list. So this one add to the temporary list. So then the student list. All right, so let me just add one more. Yeah, it's super slow right now. So add a student. Let's refresh it. And yeah, so you got 6 students here. So it's up. Okay, so just read and write. Okay, read is a little bit trickier because you need to know the structure. Okay, once you got this one, remember it's always key value. The value you can iterate it if it's a map. Okay, but that's how Firebase returns it. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you a list. If it's a list, it's even easier. It's just give you a map. So you need to do this extra step to iterate the map and turn that into a list. Okay, so you should already know how to save data and then write data to the server. Theoretically, as I mentioned, you should be good to go right now to finish that. If your app doesn't need super fancy functions, most of the feature is already there. But I'm going to show you more example next time to show you how to apply this to solve different kind of features. And more importantly, I want to show you this real-time database feature. It's a really cool feature that you can build a lot of their apps in a very easy and simple way. All right, any questions? Okay, start to play around with Firebase. Okay, it's gonna make your life so much easier. Okay, that's a big advantage. Okay, a lot of the time, for example, some of the chat app we can show you next time. It probably only takes you 20-30 minutes to build a very decent, kind of a real-time chatting messaging app. Okay, without any efforts.